Technology Manager for Packaging Solution, BNR, Italy. Please, sir. We are humbled to have you. Next, I would like to call upon on stage Mr. Satish Ansingkar, Vice President Sales, BNR Industrial Automation Private Limited. So can we have you on stage, our next panelist. Good evening and welcome, sir. Last but not least, on the panelist, we have Mr. Mahabaleshwara, PL, Senior Manager, E&A, Nestle India Limited. As to go by Dr. Bryan Griffen, Electrical and Automation Engineering Manager, Central Engineering, Nestle, earning a doctorate in technology with focus on the development of advanced process control techniques for application in PLCs. Mr. Griffen currently holds a position of manager at Electrical Automation Engineering Department for Nestle. So we present Mr. Griffen, who is right here at the panelist list. We have on panelists, we have Mr. Mahabaleshwara, BL, who is a Senior Manager, E&A, Nestle India Limited. After doing his post-graduation in Industrial Engineering, he has served Nestle India for more than 17 years, working in various plants, maintenance, brownfield and greenfield projects. Currently, we have him here for this discussion. Next on the list, we have Mr. Tarozzi. Mr. Tarozzi, Global Technology Manager, Packaging Solution, BNR Industrial Automation. Working as a Global Technology Manager for Packaging Solution Group at BNR Industrial Automation. He is responsible for the business development of packaging OEMs marketing worldwide. He is also associated with Italian Packaging Machine Builder Association. We welcome you, sir. Last but not the least, on the panelist, we have Mr. Satish Ansingkar, who is a Vice President Sales and BR Industrial Association. Beginning his career with automation 25 years ago, Mr. Ansingkar has throughoutly studied the whole industry, whether we talk about machine tools, plastic, packaging industry, textile, etc. Currently, he's holding a position of Vice President Sales in BNR Automation, so we welcome him as well. So with this, ladies and gentlemen, we start. But before I hand over this panel of discussion to the chairperson, may I, for the Q&A session, we would like you to first introduce yourself and then go further with your question. With this, over to you, sir.
To pick upon the deliberations of the previous session and take that forward. In the previous session, we spoke about issues regarding collaboration. And I think one of the sense we were getting was getting people to collaborate is a little difficult. The good news, the second good news is getting machines to collaborate is easy. And I think that's what we're going to focus on in this discussion. So, the job has been broken down that each person responsible for his machine is going to demand of the machine that it should collaborate. And the experts here, coming from various parts of the globe as well as from India, are going to take us through that journey. So, our key issues really in this goal of collaboration between machines is ultimately some kind of a consensus as to what really constitutes good performance or what really is good operational practice. And therefore, if we can, at the end of this discussion and with your concurrence, if we can have some agreement whether speed, safety and maintenance, if these three can constitute the entire bucket of performance, we would have some common agreement. The other point which came from the previous panel discussion was about the capability of different sets of people, different teams to build capability in applying and supporting the automation hardware and software, which is really the intelligence of the machinery. And most important is what's the right time for us to enter into a new standard in our country. We had a panel discussion on a similar topic last year at the PackPlus 2011, and then we left with a little open-endedness. We weren't sure whether the Indian customers really wanted this to happen, and therefore the machine guys were also in a uncertain stage has the time come for us in India to deliver on this. Hopefully today we should take a conscious decision on that. The focus of our panel discussion is really going to be on open standards. Is there a risk, or conversely, is there a reward? So if machines, the packaging machines and the processing machines were to openly talk amongst themselves, what really would that mean? I remember in the previous panel, Dada said, we must ask some fundamental questions. What, why, when? That's what we are asking. What does that mean? And would that be desirable? And why? And then who could make that happen? We spoke about stakeholders. Let's be clear, who are these stakeholders? And when is that choice going to be made? Is it going to be made now, a decade later, or when something hits us? So with that brief introduction, I would now request each panelist one by one to come and share some of their experiences and insights, and then we'll head on to the Q&A session. So my first speaker is Satish from BNR. Over to you. Please share your thoughts. Do you have a presentation? As we wait for the presentation, may I just request with a little show of hands for us and our panelists to understand how many of you are involved in machine building? Okay, just a few. And how many of you are end users, buyers of machines? Okay, and then there's a third constituency. So what part of the business domain do you belong? The ones who haven't raised your hands?
Automation suppliers.
The automation suppliers. Okay. Any other segment which we have not considered? The organizers. They are the forum. So we have an automation for packaging forum. Mr. Arora is the custodian of that. And I think it's through that forum itself that we have begun the discussions on automation. And today we are here that we really have had a little bit of discussion in the previous session. And this entire session is devoted to what automation can do for the business in packaging.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My presentation, I try to keep as short as possible. However, the point could not be missed. This point is keeping end user at the center. Now, I would like to take you through a travel of the automation into the packaging machines. Now, this was the machine which was maybe in 2000s or 90s, where it was intermittent. This is just one example. All sorts of machines were intermittent, and what brought the change was the new technology, and this became continuous. Be it sheet metal, people would have even noticed that in sheet metal and start-stop cut machines, now they are continuous on-the-fly machines. Similar things happened in packaging, where you had multi-axis machine. This is just one of the simple examples. Now, what brought this change is this. You had the control system, you had the CPU, the HMI, and the servo drive and the servo motors. Servo motors and servo drives brought the real change into the motion, because then you could really precisely control that into microns. Your print control, print mark control, all that would be under real control. This was possible only due to introduction of servos into the packaging area. You could even imagine, or you could get the information of what is happening inside the stomach of the motor. Now coming back to, or next rather, to the control architecture. If you look at it, there are various colors. They are not by mistake, but they are deliberately shown like that. The systems were having different networks, meaning HMI was communicating to the CPU on different network, CPU was communicating to the servers on different network, and also other devices. So there were multiple devices working on multiple platforms. Really speaking, there was no continuity into it. There were bumps. That means the flow from motor, the information of flow from motor to the system was never seamless. It was always bumpy. Some system in between had to convert some information and hand it over to somebody. There was a time loss and also the information loss in that. So one solution for this is what we propose is one tool for software development. That means all the products, be it HMI, be it PLC logic, machine logic, be it motion logic, everything should be handled by one tool. And this is one solution we proposed. Also, now this looks better. As earlier slide was, HMI talking to CPU on some different network. Now here, you have one network, maybe similar to Ethernet base or whichever, and you are literally tapping the information from this pipe, and you are connecting your devices, be it HMIs, multiple HMIs, or server drives, even remote IOs, or even third-party devices, all in one seamless. This is like a tap on the water pipe. Yeah, then what is the base design? Now, after we have talked of architecture of the control systems, this is a plant. Most of the today's cases, because the machines have arrived at different times, starting from 20 years, 25 years ago, or till today, there are various machines and there are various systems the management wants, and they're talking to them, and you can see the crisscross lines. And these crisscross lines are not uniform. This means everybody is talking on a different term, different network. Actually, this is what is the problem. That many suppliers are supplying the machines, or even from the same OEM, because of the technology on that machine, the CPUs are of different capacity, and they are bought from different suppliers also, and they cannot talk to each other in the way the end user would like to have it. So if end user wants to really pick the information from various machines and put it in his own common platform, he has to struggle a lot. Then there are a lot of different requirements on it because the CPUs are not having the capacity either, or the network communication from various CPUs is not common or is not adaptable to the other. Solution is what we propose, and we request also for automation suppliers as well as for the machine builders that we should have one platform defined, like we have in Microsoft Windows. Yeah, everybody's program is his own intelligent capacity or his own sort of technology, but Windows is a common platform for them. This is not the exact example, but this is one of the things which could be adapted. And we could arrive at certain template through which the machines could talk to the common platform and the information would be transferred. It could be like a black box as far as your own technology is concerned, be it machine builder or even an automation supplier. However, the outlets should be defined in a way that they are acceptable, they are known, and like a black box, the information, they are common outlets. So this is what we propose. This is how it should be on the end user's point of view, that it's a clean line. There are some tags, there are some defined tags, to which the information is passed on to the main system, from where the management could get the information of the entire plant. This was a kickoff presentation for the presentation to Griffen, who will throw more light on it. I have just used some slides to describe the current situation, which is not so desirable. There is always a better thing possible than this. So, I hand it over to
I would just Maurizio, you can now share from a global perspective of walking through your technology.
you. My presentation will be very quick, just 5 minutes to talk about the standard. A standard in communication and a packaging line, on a real packaging line. It's open safety. So today we have spoken quite a lot about machine communication and how much this can benefit in terms of effectiveness of your lines, how much can be improved, how much a real collection of data from the machines, from the system allows you to understand how much you are productive. No? That's the big question. And one important aspect that will become more and more in the future is to understand which kind of information, talking not only about data processing but also about safety, should be shared between the machine and the line, should be shared between the machine and the system ERP and MES. And there is one solution, one standard that is completely independent from any technology, completely independent from PNR, is open source, that can be applied to any kind of bus, that can be applied to any kind of technology, to any kind of machine, to any kind of your supplier, that will permit today already communication. In this example you see a line with 4 simple machines. Each of these machines has a different, let's say, supplier, a different architecture, a different network, but independently on this they can talk together in a safe way thanks to a standard protocol that is called open safety. But let's make an example. We have spoken already today about beverage lines. Here we have a beverage line, wonderful beverage lines, 72,000 bottles per hour, fully integrated, and this beverage line maybe is with ecoplastic, is the future beverage line, and we have a better integration, a perfect integration. So you see that we start from a blower, there is a blower machine, from the preform you go to conveyor, then you have a filler, and you go then to the labelers, wrapper, conveyors, and end of line. This is a typical packaging line for plastic bottle filling. And these are the machines that you have to buy and to put in your plant. And those machines have to communicate together, okay? Because when you are on the plant, sometimes you have a problem on a machine, and that information has to be shared with the other that has to reduce or increment their production accordingly to this. Typical example is a labeler machine. You have a problem with the rolls, you have to change the roll, it stops the production, but the filler machine has to continue its full production, okay? So you have to synchronize those information, and you have to do it safely. But that's not easy. That are just some of the machine builders out of Europe that can provide you this kind of machines. Some of them can provide you the complete line, just a few of them. The most of them are specialists in single machines. So you find on your plant very different situation, very different scenario. Not all the new machine, but even the same machine of the same machine builder has different architecture. And you want that they talk together in a good way, and you want that they share also safety information. Let's make just one example of how can safety protocol allow to increase the efficiency of your lines. So you are the owner, you make your 72,000 bottles per hour, and you buy a machine from different supplier. That was also a topic. Who is responsible for this? Yes, you are responsible, or the system integrator, or maybe one OEM is responsible just for putting the machine in place, but then it's the user responsibility. And you know, different machine builder has to talk each other. They have to share emergency information that are hardwired information. So different companies, different technicians has to call, okay, how many safety relays, how many safety contacts we need to share. And then there are often difficulties to have precise information, high risk of wiring, electrical drawing mistakes, just because it's a problem of communication. It's a communication problem. It's one of the problems of the world, yes, and also on the line. It's so. And having an open safety common protocol for communication this information is easier, less wiring, less component. is a software dependent, so no one can change it. No one can make risky jumpers, electronic jumper to exclude safety. So you can have a better integrated and higher safe machine. And you can have it in open source format. It's legal and technically independent. It's open source. It's approved by IEC and it's up to the highest level of safety. So SIL 3, PLE, depends on which norms are you looking for. It's field proven, available since 2008. And yeah, that's the link that you will find on the presentation that will be then sent to you, where you can download the source code. So again, let's promote the standard to make better integration and better effectiveness in your lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Maurizio. Now, Bryan, who represents not only Nestle but the OMAC, the Foundation for Open Architecture. I'd like you to, build about what Satish said on seamless way of looking at HMIs across different machines, safety. Take us through the performance journey. Take us through, how you have seen the world evolve around different standards.
So normally I don't need a microphone in a room this big. Everyone hears me okay? Yeah. Perfect. Because I cannot stand behind a podium and talk. I have to move a little bit. My wife often says, if you want to shut me up, plant my feet. Said I can't think. So I'm going to move around a little bit. But I'm coming to you from two different directions. As was mentioned, I'm the head of automation for Nestle. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about our journey to find a packaging automation solution. But I'm also currently the chairman of the OMAC Packaging Workgroup, and I'll talk about what that is as well. That's the group that's helped us at Nestle to find our solution. So we're going to talk a little bit about the journey, the process that we've gone through to get where we're at this point. I'm going to cover a little bit about, first off, who Nestle is, because I think that's important for you to understand why packaging automation is important to us. Then I'll talk about the solution that we found. It's called PackML. Once I've gotten through a little bit of that, I'll tell you more about what Nestle is doing with other people in industry. Because if we were doing this alone, it wouldn't work. This needs to be a collaborative effort. And I'll share with you some of the value and the benefits that you can find from implementing such an open standard. So to start with, Nestle. We're a company of about $100 billion US in sales yearly. We have nearly 500 factories and 400,000 employees. We make 10,000 different SKUs, and we sell about 1 billion products a day. So almost everyone in India can buy one product a day for us. Because this is the magnitude of Nestle. And every one of those products has to be in a package, at least one package. At least the primary package, if not also secondary and tertiary packaging that's associated with that. So that's a lot of packing. And as a result, we need to have a good control on how we manage that packaging operation if we want to be financially successful. So in the past, Nestle has not focused so much on the packaging automation. The reason for this is because we focus mostly on the process. We make our food different than somebody else makes theirs. Different than Kraft, different than Procter & Gamble's food section, different than anybody else. That's what makes us different. That's what we believe makes us better. And so we put all of our effort into how do we control the process. We design it, we own it, it's ours. So we dictate how the automation is done, what PLCs we use, how those PLCs are used within the factory. On the other side, we have not had packaging automation engineers in the past. We've had a very good packaging engineering group that works on things like what kind of materials, what does the package look like sitting on the shelf, how easy is it to open, what kinds of machines can actually make these packages, and how do we put these machines in factories. And then, oh, by the way, where's an automation guy who needs to come and make it all work together? So that's left us with a bit of a gap. And the reason that that gap has come is because we don't own that equipment. We don't make the packing machine. We make the process equipment, or specify it very detailed. Packaging, we buy it off the shelf, mostly. We need a caser, we need a palletizer, a stretch wrapper, we buy those. And because of that, we've left it to the OEM to determine how that equipment needs to operate. Certainly we tell them what kind of efficiencies and speeds and things, but the internal workings of that machine is not ours, it's theirs. It's the OEM's. And so leaving it to them means that we get different technologies. Because if we try and dictate, you will use PLC, whatever it is, the response we always get is, well, that's not what we do. So if you want that, it's going to cost you more. It's going to take longer to manufacture. By the way, we don't guarantee the performance anymore because that's not what we do. We use this one. So we're taking a new direction within Nestle. We needed to look at how can we be most efficient, most effective. And that's not by dictating what technology the OEM needs to use in its machine. So to start with our journey, we started back in about 2008 with this realization that we were heading in the wrong direction with our packaging automation. We started doing a survey of industry to find out what was available. We came across an organization called OMAC, the Organization for Machine Automation and Control, that had an open standard called PackML. PackML made a great promise. PackML said you can use anybody's PLC and make it communicate with anybody else's PLC. So, apologize to those in the room who might be from Rockwell and Siemens, but we can take a Rockwell and a Siemens and make them talk together. That's not normally done. Rockwell and Siemens don't usually work so well together. But we have a lot of both Rockwell and Siemens. So we thought, this is good. Let's try this. So we decided, well, first let me back up. Let me say exactly what PackML does. I apologize. Oh, go ahead. That's the next slide. PackML does three things for us. First off, it defines a state model for the machine. How does the machine operate? It doesn't say what the code underneath is doing. It simply says, if I'm in a hold state, that means something, versus an idle state or a suspense state. So if I'm in a hold state, I need to be able to say, this is why I'm in a hold state. Everybody around me needs to understand that so they can react appropriately. Second thing that it does is it provides modes of operation. Running, jogging, homing, and it standardizes what those mean. Again, so that the machine next to you has an idea of what you're doing. And the third thing it does is it provides information. We call them pack tags. Pack tags are simply I/O tags that have specific meaning. So if I'm transferring my speed to the machine next to me, he knows that the tag is going to be called pack speed, and it's going to be a floating point value. It's not going to be a double integer, it's not going to be anything else. So it makes the communication of information along the line more standardized. So we decided we were going to put this into practice. So we got a hold of our 4 key packaging automation suppliers. They were B&R, Schneider Electric with the ELAB brand, Rockwell, and Siemens. And we put them in a room and said, here's what we want to do. We're going to make a machine, or a line. Each of you are going to program a machine according to the PackML standard. We're not going to use a system integration PLC on top of that, and you're going to have to talk to each other to control this line. We then stood back and waited for the bomb to explode, which we expected it would. Fortunately, they all thought that was a great idea, because that's what PackML was proposing. That's what it was all about, and they all are corporate members of OMAC, so they wanted to see this done. So we put together a very simple line using some just tabletop equipment that had 4 different machines. It had a D-stacker that was controlled by Schneider Electric. It had an RFID reader and turning unit controlled by Siemens. It had a drilling and transfer unit controlled by Rockwell, and it had a pick-and-place robot controlled by B&R. So for example, on it moved colored pucks around the table. The colored pucks each have an RFID chip on them that says what color they are. The only place that's red is by Siemens. But Rockwell needs to know what color it is because they only drill the white ones. They don't drill the red or the black. So they need to know what the color is. They have to get it from Siemens. Well, B&R needs to also know the color because they have to put it on the pallet. The pallets need to be synchronous colors, so a black, a red, and a white pallet. The only place it can be red, because the only RFID unit is in Siemens control. So it shows that they have to pass information around, and it's not just bits. It's not just that I'm on or I'm off. It's actual information that has to go around. So we put this in practice, and then they needed to implement the state model, because that state model would say what it is that they're doing. You know, what state am I in? Am I in an executing state? Am I in a held state? Am I waiting for somebody else to do something? And then they can pass that information. So the way PackML works then is you have the underlying logic that's the OEM's. It's theirs. No one needs to know what's down there. With that, they just have to use the state model that says what state they're in, and the pack tags that just passes information back and forth across the line. Well, we put this all together, and we showed it for the first time to the world at Pack Expo about a month ago in Chicago, in the USA. It was a tremendous success. It ran for the entire show without flaw, which was lucky for us because we commissioned it about the same day we shipped it due to some timing issues. So we were a little bit nervous, but it ran. It ran well. And the communication was perfect. The information going from machine to machine to control the line. So now that we've seen that it can actually work, recipe screen, well, it depends on which HMI you're on. The recipe screens are found in different places. And the operator has to then figure out how all of this works and put it all together in his mind so he can operate this line. He finally gets it, but heaven help us the day he's sick. Because then you got to put somebody else in that line, and he has no idea. And we see it every time. Efficiency goes down. Production goes down. Because it's too complex. Well, why is that? Why can't we have a standard for HMIs? Something that has things in the same place, the same color schemes every time. This doesn't change the information that the machine builder needs to provide. It just changes where he puts it. So we've developed a template that does things like put alarms and messages down on the bottom of the screen. It puts recipe information up at the top. It synchronizes start, stop colors, reset colors. And it leaves that whole center section for the machine builder to put the information he needs to put for you to run the line. The value of this is now my operators only need to be trained on navigation once. As was said earlier, this is just like Windows. I've got thousands of Windows programs, but you know what? I always know where to find File Open. It's in the same place every time. I know how to print. It's in the same place every time. Why can't my HMIs do the same thing? The recipe screen is in the same place every time. The start and stop buttons, they're in the same place. The operator just needs to know the specifics of his machine. He doesn't need to know navigation differences now. So this is one thing that we're working on very heavily. The next thing would be to be able to take the information these machines can now pass between each other and do something with it. So we're providing the links to MES, the vertical link now, and how to do reporting. Things like downtime monitoring, first fault detection, ability to let the maintenance crew see what were the top 4 or 5 downtime reasons and times on my machine for the last shift. To be able to start to focus on where improvements can be. TPM style of manufacturing. We also are working very closely with our packaging engineers and our procurement group to put together a URS. And we heard that term earlier today, user requirement specification. Something then that when I go to purchase a machine from an OEM, I use the same documentation each time. Yes, it's configured for that specific machine that I'm buying, but he always knows there's a chapter on procurement. What kind of terms and conditions do we expect? What's the payment going to be? There's a section on line integration. How do we use PackML? Which pack tags are going to be used? What are the specific states? How do we interpret them? It's got a chapter on hygienic design. We're a food company. What do you need to do in terms of hygiene for us? It's got a section on electrical and automation. What do we expect in terms of wire labels or panel labels or types of equipment to be used in the panel? So we're standardizing all of this. And most importantly, we're putting in there a chapter on how do we validate the machine. If you say that it's going to run at 97% efficiency, how do we validate that? How do we both agree that it's actually at 97% efficiency when we do the commissioning? So we're putting together this URS, and our purchasing group can hand to the machine builder and say, that's what we expect. This is a key thing for us, because now it standardizes, not only are we standardizing the way that programming looks and feels for the technicians, we're standardizing how the information is passed back and forth between machines. We're standardizing how the operator interacts with the machine in the look and feel, and we're standardizing on how we purchase machines. We're making this a process and that we now have control over, where before we didn't. We were selecting one from here and one from here, and then throwing them together and saying, Mr. System Integrator, come make these things work, because we bought a bunch of different stuff and we don't know how to do it. We're controlling that up front now, saying, we know how it works. We know how to integrate it. We know how to make our efficiencies much better. So, as I said at the very beginning, if we were doing this alone, it would fail. It would just be another Nestle initiative that's different from what everybody else in the world is doing. And, okay, we win a little bit because we're so big, but we would lose because it's different. So, Nestle is taking a position, along with other global leaders, in OMAC, which is the Organization for Machine Automation and Control, that works on best practices around industry to standardize them in an open format that anyone can use. So we have a vision and a mission. You're going to get these presentations off the website, so I'm not going to go into great detail on what each of these are. But basically, the vision and the mission speak to end users, machine builders, system integrators, and technology providers, all the different sectors, saying, we want to help you. We want to make better packaging machines that bring faster time to market for end users and machine builders, that make the, lost our video on one, this one is, that make it easier for you to improve the efficiencies in your lines. So, we have some specific goals within the packaging work group of OMAC. The first one is enhancing OEE. And we want to enhance the OEE through 3 different tracks. First is being able to work with international standards, something that everybody understands. Second is to be able to do horizontal integration machines, in other words, line integration, machine to machine. And the third one is vertical integration, machine into the MES and ERP systems. How do we get the information? All right, you dropped everything. Good. How do we get the information from one place into the other so that we don't lose that information, so that management has a better visibility on what's going on within the process? And across all of that, improving safety. Safety in packaging systems, at least for Nestle, that's where we have most of our incidents, is in the packaging side. So we need to find systems that can be more effective and efficient in safety. And to do that, the packaging work group is broken into 2 different arms. We have a technical arm that works with what are these standards, how do you implement them, what do they mean, and we have a marketing arm. The marketing arm is all about what's the business value. The value to you in any of those 4 sectors, end users, technology providers, system integrators, or OEMs, because there is value for everyone. And that's what we want to focus on, is what is that value. So let me talk just for a few minutes about some of the value propositions that we expect to see for a couple of these sectors, the sectors that are most represented here in this room. First off, for end users, myself, most of the people that are in this room, what is the value that we expect to get? Well, first off, we expect to be able to use an international standard. And with that use of an international standard, hey, we're back on, very good. With the use of the international standard, we are better able to integrate our equipment horizontally and vertically, and then get best-in-class equipment. No longer do we have to tell the machine builder, we need a Rockwell PLC, or we need a BNR PLC. We can say, look, Use the technology that best fits your machine. You're the expert. It's your machine. Find the technology that works, but do it with the standard so that when it comes into my factory, I get the best machine and I can make it work with the rest of the stuff in the line. This is going to reduce my total cost of ownership. So that's the benefit to me. The benefit to the next group, the machine builders, which is equally as important as the benefits to the end users, are just as great. So first off, it allows the machine builder now to select technology platform. We're not dictating it anymore. Let the machine builders use what they know works. With that, it creates much, much simpler post-sale support. Right now, if Nestle buys a packaging machine and dictates that it must be Siemens Automation, and this particular supplier only works with Rockwell, he says, I can't do that. Well, we insist on Siemens, so they'll do it. You pay them enough, they'll do it. But then in 6 months, when I call and say, hey, we've got a problem with this machine, what's the first thing that happens? Click. And then they call you back, the guy who built that quit. We don't have anyone else who knows Siemens. Yeah, it's a pain. It's a pain for all of us. Well, if we can just use whatever it is that's their standard, we know we get better support. But the most important thing for the OEMs is that we protect their intellectual property with this. Because right now, when I do a line with different types of PLCs in it, I have to hire a system integrator who comes in, he works with every one of those OEMs to understand exactly how they program their machine. Because he's got to find the bits in that machine that give the permission to the bits in this machine to make them work together. So the manufacturers are giving away their intellectual property to the system integrators. They have to. It's the only way to make it work. Well, with PackPlus, we don't care how it works underneath the hood. All we need to know is what state are you in, what mode are you running in, and the pack tag information. After that, what's underneath the hood? That's the OEMs. System integrator doesn't need to know. You can still plug everything together and make it work. So we protect their IP. That comes to the system integrators, because you might ask them, well, why would a system integrator even want to do this? Because that's what they do. They work with bits and bytes in machines. Well, if you talk to the system integrators, they don't like doing bits and bytes in machines because they never know exactly what they're going to run into. And it's not where they make any money, it's where they lose money, having to get into the guts of the machine. A system integrator would rather have machines that integrate simply and work on things that make the integration better. Value-added tools, things like MES systems, reporting, downtime analysis, things that bring value to the end user, because you know I don't get any value out of bits and bytes in a PLC either. My value comes with the information, what I do with it. And that's what the system integrator can provide to me, is this sort of value-added activities. And so the last group then is the technology providers. Obvious for them is that it allows them to focus on what makes their solution better than their competitors and sell to the machine builders based on technological advantage, not based on company X wants this, because that's not an advantage to anyone. And with that, then it opens up the market to the technology providers to be able to go in and say, look, my PLC is better than their PLC because, and the OEMs can listen. Whereas right now, a lot of times they don't listen because they know, well, my biggest customer is Nestle, and Nestle only takes Rockwell. So I can't use what you've got, even though I see it's better. That all goes away. So those are the reasons why an open standard like PackPlus has value to everyone. It's not just a Nestle thing, it's not just an end user thing, it's something for everyone. It brings a lot of value in allowing us to make more efficient, better machines, better lines across the board. So last slide, just to leave you with here, some of the companies that are involved in OMAC. This is not an exhaustive list, but it's just a showing to say, look, there's a lot of big companies involved in this. I have stood on a stage with Procter & Gamble, Pfizer, Nestle, SAB Miller, all standing shoulder to shoulder in a symposium like this, presenting together and saying the same thing. We want the same equipment. I want to buy the same caser that Procter & Gamble's buying, because I don't make money off of a caser. I have to put these in a case. I'll make my money off of my product I think is better than theirs. So you can see there's a lot of big OEMs, a lot of big technology providers, and a lot of system integrators. So the message I'll leave you with is we honestly believe at Nestle that we have found the solution to our packaging automation issues. We believe that by applying PackML, we will have more efficient operations. We are fully dedicated to PackML. We are very much involved with OMAC and will continue to do so and continue to drive other parts of the standard as well so that we have a more efficient line in the end. Thank you.
I think that's a real eye-opener, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I must also thank you, Bryan, for demystifying this whole technology piece. I think you've been able to convey it in a very common language. Thank you once again. Coming now into the panel discussion from Nestle Switzerland to Nestle India. Mahabaleshwara, and we'll call him MBL for short. MBL, what are Nestle's priorities in India for packaging machines and line integration and efficiency? Are they saying what Bryan has said, or are they different? And tell us why.
Yeah. Partly, we are in line with what Ben has told us. But I would like to elaborate when it comes to packaging machine, earlier I've been talking about the efficiency and performance. It has been there. All of us talk about this. But today it's far beyond that. We speak about safety far more than ever before. Safety, human safety, human safety. Be it 360-degree guarding or rotor complaint. And these packaging machines are compliant with this. Yes, no. So, and the TPM concept, vertical startup, we talk of when the machine comes into the factory during commissioning, how long do we take? Is a plug-in rate, or we struggle to start, So these TPM concepts also and the safety are being talked about, and that's the reality. That's way forward. We do consider machines and equipment. It goes through this evaluation of considering these factors. That is equally important. So more than efficiency and performance, these human.
Okay, great. And if these are the kind of requirements, Maurizio, can I ask you, what kind of automation technology would help in, packaging players to meet all these goals?
Yes, it's yes. I think it's a big challenge. Yeah, it's a big challenge because we are talking a lot about future technologies today, and future technologies that is going to provide all this efficiency and effectiveness in the packaging line. And what it means in the end, it means to have an automation platform that is able to not just make control. Control is the important part, but control is going to motion control, safety control, robotics, vision inspection, track and trace. So all what is now automating more packaging line, from intelligent sensor and actuators up to systems that are defining production methodologies. So because of this, and because the approach of today to the automation was mainly hardware related, so there were different hardware for making different parts of the plant, different parts of the machine. So hardware for control, hardware for safety, another for robotics, another for HMI, and another for track and trace. So all those things can in the end make complexity. So the challenge today is to go for a system that is able to go out of hardware binding solution and providing all this automation challenge in one software platform. One unique software platform that can be hardware independent, that can be used on the best hardware that the technology, the consumer technology, is coming very strongly now in the automation, no? And provides you the power to have one centralized system that can really control completely the line of the machine. So this is the challenge for the automation supplier. We, as B&R, took the challenge. We have a solution that is providing all these comprehensive automation requirements in one unique software platform.
Thanks. Now, coming back to India, Bryan, you've been a champion of global standards, open standards. How can such automation standards be part of, emerging nations like ours? And what specifically do you think you would want us to do in India to make this market also truly a global market? I mean, you spoke about 4 players you interacted with: Siemens, B&R, Schneider, and Rockwell, and I think all of them are here. And fortunately, all of them are members of the Automation Industry Association. So more people are also there. What would you like to to our audience here, which will make all of us come up to that level?
That's a good question. Let me answer it a couple of different ways. First off, what we need to realize is the ownership of efficiency for equipment needs to come from the machine builders, which means they need to be comfortable with the technology that's used and how it's used. But we also, at the same time, we have to be able to integrate the lines as an end user. Because once the machines come into our factory, if we can't put them together to make them work together efficiently, then we can have the most efficient, best machines there are, and we still can't produce. So it's kind of needs to be a hand-in-hand operation between the machine builders, the end users, and the technology providers, as Maurizio said. It's up to the technology providers to present you with solutions using their PLCs and their software that make it easier to implement these sorts of standards. It needs to be a focus of the end users to insist that standards are used, the standards are followed. If we don't do that as end users, then no one will drive for it, because it really comes down to the end users needing it. It needs to be the machine builders open to make the changes that are required to follow those standards. So it needs to go hand in hand, all three. And with that, I would invite all of you to become members of OMAC and have your voice heard. OMAC is open membership, and we would love to have representation from India to understand better what the needs of a market such as India are, so that we can integrate those into the standard and make the standard better for you.
Great, thanks. Coming to you, Satish, what does it mean for a technology provider to be compliant to international standards in automation?
As Bryan described it, basically the fear in technology suppliers' mind is whether I'm losing the identity. Actually, this is no question of losing any identity. Every automation supplier has its own technology in terms of capacity of the processor, in terms of capacity of the motion control or whatever. That is not going to be restricted or redefined by any standards. What this means is, end user has to first of all insist on technology suppliers that what is that they need, like OMAC has, and then technology suppliers, I'm sure, are very much capable of providing this. The issue is of proprietary networks. On the hardware side, also on the software side. What happens is, one defines it on RS485, for example, other defines it on Ethernet, or somebody defines it on something else. And these proprietary networks are difficult to be handled by end user. And it is in the interest of also end users here in India, because it reduces your productivity, it increases the downtime whenever there is a small issue, you are losing 10 times more than if it was a standard template. So in my opinion, technology supplier is driven by the end user. Unless the end user is on one platform and they insist on particular thing, they will not do it, because that is a fear in their mind, which is definitely not true. This is completely on the end user side, in my opinion. For example, there should be a template. For example, in a condition of a particular, for example, if the temperature goes high, what should be transmitted and in which language? Once this is defined, it's like a black box. What happens inside the black box is completely a technology supplier's own technology. The outlets of the black box have to be defined on a platform like OMAC. Or, for example, on the network side, we say open safety based on Ethernet. And Ethernet is more or less accepted standard. It is available on almost all the units. So what have happened in the past, but here on, if we define this, and end user insists on the machine supplier and therefore on the technology supplier, I think this time the technology supplier is ready to deliver.
Okay. So I think he's put the onus on you, the end user. So MBL, the question to you is, if the onus is on you, what is the technical competencies required at your end to make effective and profitable implementation of open standards on machines and on integrated lines?
Yeah, building the confidence is a key factor in sustaining the investments, whatever the company makes. The company must have, say, modern machine equipment, installed it, but in the absence of confidence, to maintain it, run it, sustain it, it's extremely difficult. There is fear on the other side. If I go for a very high-end machine, but what happens if there is no support, there is no competence in-house? It is not just competence in-house as well. We also expect the same kind of competence from the supplier side as well. No, it is not just that, okay, I'm an end user, I run the machine, I maintain it. But then, probably in some cases, initially, some kind of hand-holding is necessary. But it does not happen if the supplier does not know what the machine is. It happens many times if a brand new machine comes from Europe somewhere, but here we don't know how to run after 6 months. So, building competence is through training. It is in-house on the end user side as well as from the supplier side. He has to look at how he wants to improve his service network, competence of his service engineers. That is equally important. And in the market, the way if we move forward to this standardization in packing, probably things are better. Life of a service engineer or a life of an end user will be far more simple. That's what is the way forward. What I would say.
But the question about specific competency, if you can guide us that Nestle is a big organization and maybe now you're used to a culture where you can have your own in-house automation department the way a company has an IT department. So maybe you're the equivalent of a chief automation officer for Nestle in India. So something like that, what is the direction for an end user who may not be as dominating as Nestle or as Coke?
Yeah.
What is the level of proficiency and competency on automation they need to have in-house? Or do you suggest a model in which they need to have some dedicated system integrators working as their partners?
Well, it depends on the company policies and company culture. But if I wanted another test, say if you are buying a machine clearly specify in your URS what exactly your needs are, and clearly know in advance what kind of hardware or software you are going to receive. It should not be a surprise when you receive a machine. Oh, I have this today, I don't know what to know. Discuss thoroughly with the supplier. Clearly understand what is the impact of this, what is the way forward if I have this today. No? So during that discussion, probably you come out with, you realize, okay, I need to already train my people in this direction. I'm not, I'm not ready yet to go for this technology, but I keep the modular in my mind. Even I buy the machine today, I may not be ready for complete, end-to-end solution. That's fine, but okay, go for this. Okay, a year down, I will go for this technology, and maybe I will train my people. And have a continuous discussion with the supplier to keep that spirit alive. Okay. That makes life more easy.
Great. Now, if what Mahabaleshwara is saying, needs some kind of a structure for all of us to go, something like a guideline or a guidance, is there something, Maurizio, available as part of OMAC or whatever body, which is like a global, to validate or support end users for the automation which is being prescribed in conforming to international standards? Is there something we can lean on to get started early?
Yes, there is, and this is a very important question because we are speaking about many different arguments today. So today, when you go home, you remember OMAC, PackPlus, open safety, but then it's difficult then to really think now, how can I join OMAC, how can I download open safety, how can I be really part of this community and start to implement the process. So there is a very useful book that is a publication done by the editor Packaging World, packworld.com. That is the industry reference magazine in North America that is on the end user side talking about packaging industry, packaging challenge. And they are making this number of publications that they call playbook, that are sort of guidelines. And these playbook guidelines are touching different aspects of the packaging industry. So there are playbook that you can download free of charge, just with the registration from packworld.com that talk about primary packaging machine, how to specify this machine, what does this machine has to provide you, playbook about secondary packaging machine, and about integration. And there is one specific playbook that is about automation. It's called the Packaging Machine Playbook Automation, and is what we have also prepared for all of you in the orange bag that you have received during the registration. Okay, so this is the same contact you can get by downloading from packworld.com/playbook automation playbook this information. And here you will find 80 pages, 80 PDF pages of best practice on how to implement open standards in your packaging plan. What do you have to specify, why you should do it, and go out, let's say, from an old style of specifying just a technology, but specifying performance and standards, and how you have to do it, how you can join the organization. There are also interesting chapters that are about how to calculate the effectiveness of the line, because we all talk about effectiveness, but it's not easy then how to calculate it. So there are also some formula that you can implement in your factory, really starting to measure your OEE. There is also another interesting chapter that is about return of investment, how to calculate it, because we said that this is an important question. Yeah, maybe the first time the machine builder has developed a OMAC compliant software, and that can have an impact on the cost. And that cost maybe the first time can be asked to the end users. But then how you have to calculate this cost in the return of investment. So it's touching all the aspects, the technology aspects of the packaging line, calculation of OEE, return of investment, and is explaining how joining international standards. So I suggest everybody to have a close look to it.
Thank you, that's really comforting. We spoke about one of the performance parameters, which was safety. I think Satish highlighted that. You also spoke about it. Now, Bryan, in the entire life cycle of the automation equipment and the machine, specifically for Indian customers, we look at maintenance and service as two key values. How does open standard help to provide effective or efficient maintenance and service? And what really should one be expecting from the OEMs development in these two areas?
Okay, that's a very good question. Tackling two very specific issues: maintenance and service.
Yes,
correct?
Yes.
So on the maintenance and service side, open standards can bring a lot of value because it makes sure that maintenance activities and information can be standardized across different machines. One of the things that we know as automation engineers that we oftentimes have difficulty getting plant people to understand is that if the machine was working yesterday and it's not working today, it's not the software. The software doesn't actually change. It's something else in the system, something mechanical. I would expect the OEMs to be able to build into the HMI what it is that's not working. What sensor is it that's not being made up? Why is the machine not moving to the next condition in the state model? And if they're following a standard state model, it makes it very easy then for the mechanics and the operators to be able to understand what state the machine is in, what is it that's not happening that should be happening, and how to get it to that next state. All of that can be built into the HMI so that our technicians don't even have to connect the computer, because every time they connect to the PLC and they change code, we run the risk of miscalculations and more downtime, if not having damaged machines because of a programming error somewhere. So I would prefer to see my technicians not have to get into the machine. The only way that can be done is if OEMs provide better information for managing the maintenance and the operations of that machine. Now on the service side, it also brings benefit to the OEM because, again, like I said in my presentation, they can focus then on the technology that works best for them and have one solution that goes to many different end users. They don't have to have a specific Nestle solution and a P&G solution and a Kraft solution. They have one solution and it goes to everybody. So it makes their service side much easier in the long run because they can focus on tools, internal tools for themselves as well on how to service those machines better.
So what you're really saying is that asset management should be part of the design on the HMI side and the internals of the machine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Asset management cannot be an afterthought. It needs to be part of the design.
Okay. Now let's swing back to India. Satish. As a technology provider based out of India, I know you're from BNR, but you operate in local conditions. How do you see the perspective from the future scenario of implementing open standards? You work with the machine builders. You have a technology which I understand is very strong on HMI. And also, he talked about servicing. So I presume that you are also now getting onto this web-based connectivity. So how do you see the future unfolding here?
Yeah, there are two sides of this. One is on the end user side. The end user is really looking enthusiastic and they are aware, more aware than before in India, that they need, for example, remote connectivity, remote diagnostics. They can go from Bryan's reply on HMI. On OEM side, they need to develop a kind of HMI which will help diagnose the fault as soon as possible. From the system, sometimes error number 6106, it leads nowhere. Instead of that, if the diagnostics can please look into areas of the machine, This is one part of it. For the technology supplier like us, what we have to do is the system should be capable of designing like a system diagnostic manager into the system so that you are going on internet. For example, in the past or even in present, many times the end user, if there is a machine breakdown, then he calls the automation supplier, the OEM, the motor supplier, the wall supplier, everyone else. Instead of that, if you are able to diagnose it better before reaching to the site, if at all, then maybe 80% of the cases are solved at all. They don't come at all. Many times we are not even knowing what happened because they're just not working. So from the technology supply point of view, we have to be prepared for the solutions like the system diagnostic manager, which is their best. So the system generates it, and the supplier support team can immediately evaluate what was the issue and then inform, maybe look this, maybe there was some sensor not working, something like this. On OEM part, it is more on HMI side. I agree fully with him that there are still a lot of explanation on the HMI when there is a problem, which area of the machine should be looked into. Other than maybe many times, a lot of people plug out a lot of plugs and cables, and the problem is more than what it was because they were not told. It was not a end user's problem, it was because they were not told. So the supplier and the OEM both have a part to play in this, in my opinion. Okay. For the diagnostics and as a technology, on the internet side, it is really necessary now. And also remote diagnostics, sitting in, for example, Pune, we could check what is happening in Haridwar or down Coimbatore somewhere, what exactly is happening on the machine.
Okay, so with that kind of automation, I'd like to, as we run into the last leg of our panel discussion, jump into another topic, which is robotics. We keep hearing that, is robotics relevant for India? Yeah. So, how do you see the future for robotic automation in packaging lines at the level of business you're operating here in India?
It's very much relevant, no doubt about it. It is a reality, it is there, it's the way forward. But when it comes to robotic application, it is really expensive. In Indian context, if you look at the payback of these such systems, there is no payback. So we are not good because the labor is still cheap. But let us not ignore that part. Labor will not be as cheap per hour. It will show it's certain to rise, but maybe it is valuable. Maybe then we'll have to think of, okay, we have to invest in the future. It doesn't mean that just I jump in and today itself I convert my entire line out to robotics. Let us go slow, but let us keep that vision on. We have adopted, in Nestle, we have adopted those technologies in India. 5 years back, it was for us also, we were hesitating, but today it's a reality and we are very much comfortable with that. And I'm not sure who many others are probably adopting, but there is a lot of potential and opportunities galore. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now coming back to technology, if we have to prepare, the motion control platforms for robotics, if it has to come in the near future, what are the challenges that represents, and what really should be the real benefits we should be looking for?
Yes, robotic it's a very important topic, and it will be more and more also in the future, also touching the open standard topic. Why? Because we all make packaging here, right? And you differentiate from your competitors mainly on the shelf due to the package. And it's the package color, shape, every day changing. And it's more and more personalized, and it's more every day going into a specific part of the people. That means products change very frequently, and to be fast on the market with your new product, to take new customer, new appeal, you have to have packaging lines that are able to handle this new product in the best way. And the best and fast things, even if it is not the more economic today way of doing it, is by robotics. Because robotics can perfectly integrate the new shape of products. Vision, it's providing already today information to the robot of what is the shape, what is the height, how this product has to be handled, how it has to be packaged. So this robotic integration from primary to secondary packaging to end of line is coming more and more, and it's something that is going a little bit out of what is available today, mainly in terms of robotics. If you think to robotics in the plant, you think to interfacing, not integrating. That are different things. You know, you typically buy a robot, it's expensive, yes. And has a certain interface, PackPlus, Profinet, device, internet interface, or whatever it is, CC-Link. But that's not really integrated in the machine. Has a different control, has a different solution. You cannot make a good troubleshooting. You cannot synchronize it with the machine. You cannot make synchronous movement like with the motors, with the motion control. So the next things is really to have this robotics implemented, integrated directly by a machine builder that is providing a full service also on this and making the highest availability, the best performance, and integrating safety with an open standard, for example, like Open Safety Connect. That means the human interaction in a packaging line with robotics will be standard in less than 10 years. And so we have all started to think about how to do it and how to make it with using standard. This is what we also has been our thinking of.
Robotics will throw up another challenge for us here in India. One is the cost challenge.
Yes.
And the other is back to safety, what we started this discussion with. We in India do not have very high standards of safety. I'm not talking about, at the level of the programming, but even otherwise on machines, on process safety, on people safety. So how do you think we can contribute to this process of improved safety through the adoption of, standards? How can we maximize safety without adding to cost?
Okay. By using international standards that we've been talking about, such as PackPlus, one of the real value points that we see is the ability to integrate information about operations. We can get information across the entire line on what is happening, what are my efficiencies, what are my downtimes, what are the issues that I'm running into. If, on the other hand, we cannot similarly integrate safety information, then we're back to square one. So we really didn't integrate the line. Safety is also a key component of the manufacturing process and needs to be integrated into the line the same way that operational data is integrated into the line. The best way to do that is, again, through an open standard. So we have PackML that deals with operational things. We have systems such as Open Safety that allow the same level of communication across the line at the safety level. So again, just like with PackML, a system like Open Safety is not replacing the hardware. It's not telling the OEM that they have to program their safety system in a specific way. It simply takes safety information, packages it, and sends it on to the other machines so that everyone knows if this machine is down, why is it down? Is it something that requires me to also go down into a safe mode? Or is it something where I can stay in an idle mode and keep my homing, my heater bars heated up, everything like this, so that when it's time to restart, I restart quicker, rather than going into a full shutdown. But the only way to do that is through passing that kind of information. Now, in a country such as India, where the safety standards may not yet be as high as some other countries, and I say yet because it will come. Safety is a function driven by people. And when people insist on a safer work environment, they insist on better protection as they do their daily tasks, it will be necessary for end users and machine builders to comply with that. Because it's a fundamental principle for humanity to be able to come home from work at the end of the day. And so we're building tools that can help countries such as India, as well as countries such as the US or European countries, to equally implement safe systems without a large additional cost.
Thanks. And Satish, can you help us close this conversation by letting us know that what really are the real benefits of open safety or safety, in terms of overall benefits?
Yeah,
because this conversation about safety really, as we talk, sometimes is seen as anti to the productivity issues. But can you present us a consolidated list of benefits for safety?
Yeah, we're talking of one of safety and the open safety. They're two different. Open safety is incorporated in the safety. Now, there is a new term called safety IOs, or safety drives, safety motion control. What we talk of open safety is a protocol which will really unclasp. This will remove the so-called proprietary and blocked information. So open safety will bring the information out on a standard platform, on a standard template, so that everyone can deal with it. When we talk of the safety, is a human safety, we normally say, or the machine safety. Basically, it's more to do with human safety, of course, machine safety as well. So, when we talk of safety in India, as yet, it has not started, but it will come because more and more people are getting aware of it, more and more sector is getting into organized rather than unorganized sector. And here, the safety IOs and safety motion control and safety CPUs and safety program comes into picture very much. It is necessary, it is going to be there in the very near future, also a necessity, not a fashion. At the moment, whenever somebody talks of a safety, many of them, not all of them, think it is, oh, maybe it's a fashion, it's not applicable to us, but it's going to come very soon, sooner than expected. On the open safety, when we say safety, IOs, it is not a stoppage to the productivity. It is really necessary that we follow the rules. In the sense, if there is something which is dangerous, and if we bypass it, it's not going to help anymore. Yeah, it's possible that there is a 443-phase cable which was lying for open for 6 months. But unless you touch it, it is not known like why the installation was required. So this means if you open the door of a spill, definitely there is something to fly in your eye. So safety is a necessity rather than a fashion. And other side of open safety, which is not safety related issue, but this is open safety is a standard of protocol, standard of network, which will, as I said, remove the iron box of people who don't want to share the information and make the system rigid. We want to make it more open. Yeah. And it benefits the supplier, it benefits the machine builder, it benefits the user, and it benefits the user of the product itself as a public. Yeah.
So thanks for clarifying that point and also telling us that it's still relevant for us to look at safety in a very different light. Great. So I think we've covered most of the topics, and now the field is open for the audience. So the rules of the question is that you will identify yourself, your name and your organization, and then ask the question. Anybody from the audience?
Is it necessary any question or it will be automatic?
I think this is meant for you to seek information from them. So you could, use your context, but please ask them to share some information in a way that helps all of us.
Exactly. Now, I just go by, my name is Anup Wadhwa, and of course I run this publishing magazine called Packaging Conclave, and I'm also a consultant in the field of packaging conclave. Now, my only part which I went through with all the deliberations of the hearing, a few things that I thought I should be able to give comments on safety, which obviously talks about human safety. Then obviously high-tech manpower comes into the picture, and that will take sooner or later for institutions to absorb all these technologies they have. And second part is concerned about maintenance, which something was referred, and I actually happen to handle a particular company's product called this Landau in Germany, and they are so sophisticated in compression molding, it is as difficult as extrusion of packaging films, etc. That they are in a position to, through website, able to understand the machine performance with all their customers and able to advise straight on through website and then make sure that the maintenance part of it is taken care of. And that with that machines of compression molding that we had working very well, and I'm sure such system could be used by the machinery manufacturers to make sure that the customer does not get any problem into maintenance. About the cost of labor, which may be today less, in order to avoid automation or robotics, but on an overall basis, you will find that the quality improvement on automation will obviously make good of course the cost of labor that would go out of the same. Wastage will reduce and wastage.
Let's have some questions, otherwise I'm going to ask you something.
Yeah. Actually, I had a question, okay. Partly it is already answered and asked by you about the safety. But the practical, I will just add to that. I will not ask this question which I had in mind. Clarity is given by Maurizio, Satish as well as Bryan now. So I am very much clear, I will not touch on that, that is easier to clear. But still the practical part is, still not only the owners or entrepreneurs or the line manager, but even down to the operators, that is what practically I have seen. They do not want safety. If the safety is talked about to them, even the operator resists because his bonus or everything is concerned with the number of pieces or production he makes. So he considers safety as a blockade to his all bonus production of the machine, and even the owner is about the productivity. So what is the, how are we going to address those issues?
Is that a question to
Maurizio and Satish? Yeah.
Or do you want to ask that question to the owners here that do their operations?
Yes, yeah, owners also, yes. Because I listened to the version of Nestle. In many global companies, they will have one strong thing that they want safety. That is true.
Yes.
For all the multinationals, or whether it is P&G or Nestle, they would ask, or even some of the OEMs who are.
Yes, so can I request to ask, because the question is already answered by Nestle that they are proponents
yes,
of
to the
safety.
others, yes.
So what Hans is really asking is that, is this situation true in your facilities that because of the bonus and incentive that an operator would bypass a safety thing? Yes or false?
Yes.
So should that practice continue?
Actually, that practice should be continued. We manufacture packaging machines, and in our machines we give all safeties like door locks or other safeties. But when we visit to the factory sometime, some 6 months after the installation or 1 year after the installation, we found that door has been removed, that safety lock has been bypassed either through some electrical connections or either by some other ways. And this thing is, I have seen in many of the MNC's company. Even recently I saw in pharma industry where the norms and all that are quite strict. So this should be continued definitely. I don't think that it will hamper any performance or any other thing. But no doubt, if somebody want to do work with the machine while machine is in operating position, it is not possible, and in that production may get hampered little bit. But that is, safety is the most concern. most important concern.
Let me ask you to respond.
I ask a question. Did you go through did you ask him why, what made him to do so? That answers probably what, no one wants to get hurt, that is clear. Whether it's a multinational company, a small company, big company, no person wants to get hurt. He wants to go back home safe, that is clear. At least that much awareness is among all of us, including down the operator level. But what we'll have to see is company culture. Okay, the production. It could be that particular production officer is forcing somebody to claim he has seen his shift, the volume is so much, it is already less, so he is forcing. But believe me, doing all this will not bring any productivity, it's a very, very short term. So it is you need to have this culture in place. And look at the last time injury, or look at the person without one finger. This kind of information sharing, the importance of safe operation will make these things more streamlined. The other could be what made him to open the door and bypass that safety thing, and he wanted to do something. I don't think so. It was his intention to get or bypass it. But we'll have to go into the details what made him to do so. There is a reason. Either it is some inherent problem in the machine by which he is forcing him to do so. We will have to really look into this. Case to case we'll have to. If you tell him, okay, you can do this other way around, he will do it, I'm sure. But you'll have to tell him. Okay, who has to tell him? Either the production officer, or service provider, or whoever, somebody, operator may not be knowing. But by intention he doesn't do this. This is my experience.
Since our topic was standards, I would ask Bryan to respond. If a company had adopted standards and the machinery builder had conformed to the standards, would such a situation have arisen in the first place?
I think there's a couple of points there. First, the adoption of standards can make the communications and understanding of the safety situation much stronger. It's much easier to do the training because all the machines have the same look and feel, the same sort of information. It's easier for the operators to understand or the maintenance people more likely to understand where the issues can be. So a standard will help with that, but I think also the onus is on both end users and machine builders to solve those types of safety issues. Machine builders need to build better machines, to be honest. If you've got a machine that the operator has to take guard doors off because it's going down or jamming that frequently, then we need to look, is it a material problem? Because it can be, it may not be the machine. Let me take a little bit back there. It could be a machine, it could be material, it could be the way the operator functions, which also may need to be changed. So the end users as well need to do better working with their operators to train them how to work in a safe situation without losing efficiency, because it can be done. Just as an example, we have some factories that we've been working with in Asia that had very poor safety records and very poor efficiency. And as we started working with them to understand why machines were going down, what the breakdown reasons were, we noticed that we not only improved the safety, but we also improved the efficiency. Because a large part of it was getting rid of those reasons as to why it needed to go down in the first place.
I think that's a very important message. Because when you clean up the act, you gain everywhere else.
One question here.
Yeah, so questions on our topic, yeah, Mr. Rani.
Just I think continuation to the question you asked him. Now, when we talk about say standard, you mentioned in your presentation earlier that Nestle has standardized even on the process side onto the Rockwell. Processing equipment controls everything. Now, what kind of advantages you got using a standardizing even on the control system? Does it also give a synergy that yes, if you had say machine side also onto the Rockwell, probably your inventory, the skill level, harmonization, everything, those kind of advantages Nestle has been able to derive?
Okay, so if I understand, let me repeat the question to make sure I understand. On the process side, we standardize everything, we control everything. What value would we gain if we did the same in packaging? Is that the question?
Yep.
Okay, we tried to do that in the past. Yes, you may gain something in terms of hardware standardization, which might help the stockroom in terms of spare parts. But what you lose is typically efficiency in the machine, and you don't gain any benefit in safety. Because if you insist that an OEM uses a machine, a PLC, that he's not familiar with, the program to safety, you're at a greater risk than if they use a PLC that they're familiar with and know how to do safety with. So I don't see it being an advantage on the packaging side, again, because we're not the ones who own that technology. The machine builder owns it. They know how that machine needs to run. They know what needs to be done to make it safe. We can do that on the process side because we design the process. I mean, we're the ones who mechanically, thermodynamically, and electrically design that process, so we know how it operates. We can dictate what we do with it. Packaging equipment's not the same way. My technicians don't know very much at all about high-speed packaging. You start getting into higher speeds like bottling operations and things like this, the more hands-off, the better.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, last two questions.
Is your experience which would be a better option?
Yes, that is our experience. And what we have found is that there is an advantage to having a single supplier source the entire line. The advantage is that they have some ownership, so the maintenance can become easier. That's certain. The disadvantage is you don't get best-in-class machines across the line. So your efficiencies are not what they could be. And the value of having a standard such as PackML is that I can now get best-in-class machines and still make them work together the same way as if it was a single source for the entire line. That's been our experience. So that's why we're pushing so strongly for PackML and for these kinds of open standards, is because we know that we can get best-in-class machines, tie them together just as if it was a single vendor, and get still the performance increase. That's why we're going where we are. Good question.
Somebody else had a question there?
Now, I have a question.
Okay.
When you have a packaging line with very different speeds of machines, very different age of machines that you're trying to upgrade, or you're trying to expand, add more lines downstream, etc. Have you used packaging to standardize such lines yet? What is the experience in modernization, upgradation, expansion?
That's maybe something that does need to be clarified. Typically, we're using PackML on new lines. If you have an operating line, I would never go back and tear out the control system and retrofit it with something else. It's running. There's no value to that. For upgrades, when we're upgrading a line, we do it machine by machine, and those machines, we implement PackML. And we know we're not going to get the full integration value until all the other machines are also upgraded. But it doesn't cost us really anything during the upgrade process to go ahead and make it PackML compliant. Now, there are some tools available from some of the technology providers to take old machines that are not PackML designed and put on top of them some pieces of software that make it look like it's PackML designed. So it restructures the state machine inside the state model inside that machine. It just remaps it into the PackML state model. So you can get a pseudo integration. It's not as tight of an integration as if it was native PackML, but it does integrate, and you do see the value from that as you're moving forward, upgrading these lines. But in principle, I would not replace automation systems that are running unless you're redoing the line anyway.
Thank you. I think we have reached the limit of our time, and if there are, just to wrap up this discussion, I think what our panelists have really shown us is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us in India to look at the way global leaders are sort of, looking looking at standards to make it more easy to operate and focus on their core business. And their core businesses are being protected. As we can see, Nestle is one of the most admired companies. And the opportunity for OMAC and for the has also been addressed. And in Bryan, we have a champion. In Maurizio, we have someone who has led this journey through the technology path. We have Satish, who's been looking at the Indian OEMs, not only in packaging but in other areas. And we have our good old friend Elias, who is, the silent but steady marcher of Nestle's growth story in India. So we have all the experts. It's up to us to sort of take a consolidated view from the perspective of the organization I represent, AIA. I could say quite honestly that we can play a role in bringing this standard into India. We have a technology fair coming up in February. On each table there is a little pamphlet. So if the 4 major companies who work for you are willing to do it in India, I promise you we can get it done first thing in 2013. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, can we give a big round of applause?